Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am Dr. Patience Jackson Rose, and this is Co-working Live with Red Worldwide. And we are excited that you are here with us today because it's Wellness Wednesday, and we love Wellness Wednesday. We really try to dive deep into areas that help us to do business well. And so today we're going to be talking about something that has been a challenge for a lot of people. A lot of people deal with fear. And I remember when I was growing up and going through a lot of different trainings for ministry and for missions. And before I actually even started college, I heard the concept of fear being false evidence appearing real. And so, you know, I know that we have people that, have a challenge when they are faced with something new or faced with something that might be daunting. They run into these walls in which they begin to feel anxiety and sometimes even dread over doing specific things. And so today we're going to talk about how do you conquer that? How do you take fear and use it? And hopefully one of our wonderful life coaches, business coaches, Crystal Morgan Holloway, will come and share because she has a wonderful take on fear. And it's amazing, how all of us who are in the same space, we seem to come with something that is very helpful when it comes to the dealing with this particular emotion. But Javon, will you run our slides, please? I just want to really help you to come away with this with some tools that you can use to make sure that you are not falling into a trap of allowing this particular feeling to guide you or to stop you, become a barrier, for you of moving forward. To allow it to hold you back is really not the best course of action. So we're going to talk about what you can do with it. But fear of failure really can hold you back from achieving your dreams. And when we are looking at the root of fear, we want to have some practical, proven strategies that you can use, to overcome this particular area that will present itself in your life. Next slide, please. So I want you to pay attention to the fact that fear itself can be kind of paralyzing. It can cause you to be in a position where you are just mortified and, you cannot move forward. And sometimes these shadows, in the darkness, or perceived things that might be happening, they can cause you to miss opportunities, um, to even not move, to not make a decision. We call that inaction. And when you don't make a decision, that is making a decision, by the way, but it causes you to miss out on potential growth, on potential success. When you don't do anything, you can't expect for things positively to happen. Sometimes they do, but you cannot count on that. So you have to be able to overcome this area so that you will not miss an opportunity. The other thing is that it stifles your creativity when you're fearful, when you're afraid to fail. And I'm not just talking about, being, feeling a little bit of fear, or apprehension. I'm talking about people who are having a real challenge with being afraid to move forward because they're afraid that they're going to fail. We tend to stick to the safe, familiar path. And it limits our creative potential. There have been times when I've had to go out into the deep, okay, in order for me to be able to accomplish, just a basic thing. And just depending on what you're dealing with your life and, how things are happening for you, sometimes you might position yourself where you are seeing things, that are really just not there. are not there, but the fear of failure itself can create these perceptions, and it causes us to say, well, you know what, I'm not going to go over there because at least I know what I'm dealing with over here. I don't know what's over there, so I know what's over here, so I'm going to stay right here because it is safe. And then the other thing that it does is it causes us to have reduced self-confidence. It erodes, at our esteem levels, and it makes us doubt and discount our abilities and our self-worth. And so we want to be thinking about, you know if fear has the capability of doing all these things, why do we hold on to it like it's one of our, familiar and best friends? We've got to think about the fact that fear is increasing our stress levels and making it so that, our fear of failure, I should say, it's making it so that the anxiety, level is heightened. And so we have to, you know, admonish ourselves to rise above that and not deal with it in the manner in which, our past maybe has caused us to, handle it, which is succumbing to it. Because it can lead to chronic stress and it will lead to burnout if you allow it. Next slide, please. So we got to unmask the root causes of fear. Um, some of us have had childhood experiences, and those childhood experiences led to, this, uh, handling of fear in the manner in which we are, the fear of failure. Um, Early criticisms or high expectations, can really shape the fear of failure. And I know that, or for that matter, low, uh, you know, low expectations, okay, can sometimes shape, our fear of failure. Social pressures, the fear of people, having an opinion, okay, that doesn't resonate with what it is that you want to hear. And, sometimes it could be constructive criticism and you're just taking it in a manner that makes you, feel fearful of failure. Other times it's just judgment. It's really just judgment. Peers, society, people who just don't agree with where you're going in life, or they have something that they feel like you should be doing better, and that can intensify the fear of failing. I never forget, in my life, I've had times where, even my parents or people who are very close to me did not agree with the path that I was on. And I just felt so strongly that what it was that I was going to be doing in life was what I was supposed to do. And I had to do it afraid. And I get that from a person who's I can't really say she's a real colleague because we run in some of the same circles, but we haven't had the opportunity to share like that. Although I do consider her to be, because I do know her and, she knows me, but I don't know her in that right, but I know her work, and her work demonstrates such a powerful perspective when it comes to the fear of failing. She says, just do it afraid. Okay, take that step. If you can't get rid of the feelings of fear, go anyway. Okay. And I love that because it's true that when you move out of that fear of failing, the social pressure that goes along with it will dissipate over time, and you will become impervious to it. It will not have the same kind of effect on you if you get used to just moving out, even though you feel a fearful level of anxiety coming over you. You still move, okay, and not stay stagnant in what it is that you're doing. And then perfectionism, setting unrealistically high standards, or for that matter, they may not be unrealistically high, but they may be lofty in that, it's just something that is a way of seeing yourself beyond where you have the capacity to go in a short period of time. Sometimes we have to break things up into phases, and our goals, are pushed together in a way that, when something happens and we don't quite get there, we're feeling the feelings of, failure, when really it wasn't that we are, that we were failing. It's just that we are getting there slower than what, we want to, or what we have expected. And so having these standards can lead to the fear of falling short, because maybe you have gotten used to putting things and compacting things all into, a set of time that is not enough time to allocate for what it is that you're trying to do. I remember thinking that I'd be able to complete, 4 master's degrees in a certain amount of time frame. And I don't even know why I had a time frame. There was just something in me that, wanted to put time on this. And when I got into the program, one situation happened. I'm in the middle of the pandemic, and I couldn't move as fast as I wanted to because the school couldn't move as fast as I wanted them to. So there was nothing that I could do to make that thing change. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around why it was taking so long. And so I've even done it with my radio broadcast, and also with this podcast, where I've tried to fit so much content in 1 hour. Okay, I got to get it done in 1 hour. Okay. And it's like, why? Okay. I mean, why not break it up into 2 parts? It's okay. People, need to be able to digest what it is that you're doing. And just because they can't move at the speed of me, okay, I, feel like, okay, well, how come they can't, how come we can't make this work faster? And, do I need to take something out? No, you don't need to dilute the material. You just need to break it up. So sometimes in life, okay, we have these, levels of perfectionism that we put on things that don't even require it. It's our expectations that have created our own feelings of fear of falling short, or or even, for that matter, or failing. And then our past failures. Your past is in the past, and we got to know what to do with that. Okay, and leaving it in the past is really going to be a huge opportunity for you to not have fear associated with what has happened in the past. The sting of a missed opportunity or a botched attempt, sometimes can leave us with this negative feeling and this lasting, dread of repeating the failure. And so we've got to be able to understand that those were learning experiences. They taught us something. They took us through a challenge, and we now know what doesn't work, so we can use that to our advantage. But seeing it that way is really a change in perspective. And this is something that we have to do for ourselves. Next slide, please. So how do we reframe? I know, Kevin, you're on the line, and I love the way you teach this, because I know that, and we'll be having Kevin come back real soon. Kevin Janeway has been such a phenomenal teacher and trainer for this particular area of reframing failure. And so when we look at it as reframing failure as growth, we can reframe failure as a lot of things. And we're going to look at, 3 different things here. But, just over the overarching concept here is to reframe the failure, to see it differently as a growth spot or spurt in our lives. And so seeing failure as feedback, when you can view failure as a valuable information that guides our future actions, then it makes our setbacks offer insights, okay, for improvement. And so just like I talked about, we now know what doesn't work. When we're looking at failure from the standpoint of this is a teaching tool, this is an insight that can give us a way of, being able to have crucial information, that could help to change the parameters for how we do certain things. It's just amazing what fear can provide us when we see it as a tool instead of as a weapon. Failure is, something that we learn from. And so when we can see failure as learning, okay, we can embrace it as an essential step in the learning process. At some point, something's not going to work. And when it doesn't work, we now know how to go around it or what to do with it or to use it as a step. Or as I said, maybe it's a phase because we tried to compact too many things into one area and they didn't all fit. And so the failure itself is teaching us how to divide things up so that it's better allocated and we can better utilize it. There are opportunities to gain knowledge and skills. And I just want to tell you that failure provides us opportunities because it opens up a path, in the middle of something that we thought was negative and it was unwanted and it was just something that we would prefer not to have gone through. But it was an opportunity to have knowledge, more knowledge than what we had before, and to gain the skill set that's needed so that we don't necessarily fail in this thing the next time. And then we have to use failure as courage and view it that way. Recognize that failure often means that you had the courage to try. And we don't use the word try, or attempt per se, as a part of our language. When we're talking about moving forward, we call these actionable steps, right? You took some actionable steps. And although your actionable steps did not result in what you desired, it resulted in something that made a level of growth for you. And it created the opportunity for you to see yourself differently or to see the situation differently than you saw it before. Next slide. So what are the 5 strategies? What are the 5 strategies to overcome fear? Okay. Well, the first thing we have to do is focus on control. Identify and concentrate on factors within your control. This reduces anxiety about the external uncertainties. When you can focus on what you can do, what you can, accomplish, based on some informed, okay, actions that you have made, then it reduces the feelings of anxiety. Okay. And so we have to really help ourselves reduce anxiety by focusing. And so when we focus on, factors that, are proven, that are time tested, that have become a part of our arsenal, now since we know how to utilize them, this really does help. And then when we are able to analyze and look at ahead of time some worst case scenario, realistically assessing, the worst possible outcome, then it, if that outcome happens, it's less catastrophic than it was imagined. Okay. And I'm not saying that you should be focusing on the worst case scenario. I'm saying assess so that you are aware of the things that possibly could happen, because, a lot of times you can even create a better process by looking at your worst case, your worst possible outcome. And then you can put some safeguards in place. You can set up some guardrails. You can, do things differently, and probably avoid, something that could have been more, deafening if it occurred. All right. And you can also learn from your past failures and reflect on those things that you learned, and how they led to growth or unexpected opportunities. Okay. And so when you're able to look at these things, really have serious reflection, take the time to sit back and say, okay, this is what I did. This is how it occurred. Or I should say my antecedent, what occurred beforehand. These things happen. And then this is what happened, and this is what was done, after that happened, or this is how everybody responded, to what happened. Can I do next time that makes this situation have a better outcome? All right. And you want to also prioritize your growth, okay? Because you got to shift the focus on avoiding, or not avoiding failure, but pursuing, the learning and the personal development. When you become, a person that's not scared, I mean, that's not afraid to fail, okay, or to have something not work as you expected, then what happens is you position yourself for growth. You have the ability now to pursue, learning and personal development. I remember the first time I got a D in a class, and I was just like mortified because I had been an A student. There's just no way that I would have ever expected to get a D. And this was in a college course, and I was very young. I was actually still in high school while I was taking that particular college course. And it was a high level course. It was a calculus course at the college level. And I'd had calculus at the high school level, and I got an A, so I was expecting to get an A in this college course. But I was up against a situation that was just a scenario I had never experienced. The teacher was grading on the curve, and all of the students in the class were A students. So it's like, oops, okay, and they were all adults, and a lot of them were, Middle Eastern, or students who, I mean, they had come here, engineering students, okay. They were all taking calculus after they had calculus, I don't know how many times, in their home countries. And I'm in there with one other person who's from America, who is also an engineer, and he's a male. Not that that should have made any difference, but in my perception of things, I felt like it was me against the world of engineers. Oh, it was hilarious. And I found myself in a situation where I got sick, and I was out of class for over a week. And our classes were every single day. We had class every day, and I missed 5 classes, I believe. It was like, from a Tuesday to the next Monday. And I went back to class, and I was so lost. It was just unbelievable, and I was able to recover, but I was an A student until that point. And that happened 2 weeks before the end of the semester. And I went from the A to the D because my final exam score was not what it needed to be. And it was 50% of the grade. And so it didn't matter that I was an A student until the last week, week before, we started studying for finals. But it taught me something, because I had a ton of knowledge, in the area of calculus at the time, but I more so needed the knowledge that there sometimes, where it doesn't matter how much it matters, the level of competition that you're up against, because there's some things that, when you're competing and there's a winner and a loser, what may not be the deciding factor in the game. So in this particular case, I was, profoundly affected by it, but, and it dropped my score so low, my GPA. I was like, well, not really so low. I was at a 3.6, but I was totally upset because I had a 4.0, and I was like, ah. But, this is the thing, the prioritizing of my growth and helping me to understand that at that early stage, walked me right into what I needed to do, in my next years of college. And I've gone to college a long time. I'm still in college now. And I can tell you that some of what I'm experiencing now, the way I'm handling it has to do with what I learned in those early stages. And so when you shift your focus from the avoiding of this failure, man, if I had been trying to avoid failure, I would have stopped going to college, because unfortunately there are just lots of things that come at you. You have so many different teaching styles, and lots of assignments that you get thrown into programs, or you have to work in a cohort or work with people, and your style and their style may not mesh, flesh. And, there's just lots of things to learn. And when I looked at this from the perspective of I am pursuing learning and personal development, professional development, then it changed my approach, but it changed my viewpoint, my perspective so much that I don't, allow the feelings of anxiety or failure to stop me from trying, to stop me from moving forward. Okay. Consider what it would cost you to not make a decision, inaction, to not go forward, to just be static and to, let things happen. Evaluate the long-term consequences of, when you don't take action because of the fear of failure. And when you put that up against what it is that you desire, I can tell you what you desire is going to win out every single time, or for that matter, what you could potentially, do over time. It's going to weigh out over, in every single moment. Okay, next slide, please. So, how do we, move forward despite what we feel? Well, we got to be able to start small. Okay. Begin with low risk actions. And when I'm talking about low risk, I mean, these things, won't have an impact that would cost you, your job, or that might cost you, your position in life, or for that matter, might cost you your mental acuity, your level of peace. Start with something small, and even though you might feel a little anxiety, move forward in that thing first. Okay, so you can build out your confidence gradually of moving despite how you feel, and then from there, once you, make gains, celebrate the efforts, acknowledge your courage in taking action, regardless of the outcome. Even if you didn't win, you won, okay, because you move forward, okay, and celebrate it by sharing with others what it is that you've experienced. Use visualization and imagine yourself succeeding to boost your confidence, and your motivation. Seek support, share your fears with trusted friends or mentors, so that you can feel encouraged, because these are really, really important things, for you to understand that when you're able to have the support of others, sometimes it helps to push you, in ways that you can't push yourself, and so find someone, to ride alongside of you, in this journey. Having relationships with people who support what you're doing can be really, really key when you're talking about moving forward in some area that has produced a level of anxiety for you in the past. And so I have found that, it's not difficult to find mentors. It's not difficult to find people to ride alongside you. You just have to look for them and ask. I have asked people, hey, can you mentor me? Or can we, get into some kind of a peer relationship where, you're holding me accountable for this? And it's been amazing to see what happens. And then there have been other times where I just told someone what I was doing, and they're like, hey, I want to support you in this. How can I support you? I think I like where you're going with it. What is it that I can do? And so getting the support you need is going to be key for a lot of these bigger ticket items, things that you look at and say, okay, I want to do that. I remember when I had the opportunity to participate in a cohort, for a doctorate degree in humanities. And there were some things that had to be accomplished that I just couldn't see myself accomplishing in the short period of time that they had to be done in order for me to be finished, because I was I was in school getting another degree, and was on leave from my PhD while I'm trying to do this other, humanitarian act of gaining this knowledge so that I can serve people better. And I remember, feeling like I had to do it right then. I knew it was like, I just felt like God was calling me to that. But all of the other things that I was calling me to, were yelling at me saying, how are you going to do us? Because sometimes we have ambition and we have things that we desire, and God allows that, for us. He gives us an unction for things, I believe, and so I'm talking about things that have to do with my faith tradition, and you may not believe the same way, but I'm just saying that this has been my experience, and my life experience has trained me that when I feel an unction to do all of the things right then, rather than test that or question that, I need to move with it. There are other times when I'll load up the deck and I'll have to go back and count the cost and say, you know what, this needs to wait. This needs to wait. I only need to focus on this one thing. But last year, that was not the case. Okay. It was like, get it done now. And I was so grateful that I did not stop. Quitting, and I've been saying this all week, quitting is a thief. It robs you of opportunities and it keeps you from, making, the the necessary steps to be able to do what it was that you were planning to do, that was designed for you to do. And so we got to understand purpose and really move forward in it, when we are feeling sometimes a level of anxiety that really wants to make us stop. Okay. Let's go to our next slide, please. So let's look at some real world success stories. These are, some of the people that, I, have had the opportunity to really study or even meet or share with. I mentioned Lisa Nichols earlier and her concept of doing it afraid. And so this first picture you see of she and myself and my husband were at one of her, it was at one of her events. And we were talking about, how when I was in prison, how she was a focal point, a person that I could look at and say, okay, if she can go through the challenges that she had and get where she is, then it's possible for me. Okay. It's doable, so I remember her talking about the financial hardship she faced when she was raising her son and being on food stamps and having some of the challenges that she was going through to get to where she was, but she became a global coach and a life alignment phenomenon. That's what I call her, because she has a gifting that helps people to get their lives aligned in a way that causes them to become profoundly successful. And the global stage that she stands on is amazing. There are people that recognize her. She was a part of the group that did The Secret and, some other very notable things. And so I, really was challenged, to take steps that I probably wouldn't have taken at the time of what I call, some of my darkest moments in life. But because I had this focal point of people, of course I, was focusing on God, but he was putting people, real life bodies that were here in the earth doing things that were amazing despite the challenges that they had gone through, and so she was one of those people that was an icon, somebody that I didn't worship, but someone that I did, I was very impressed by. I mean, it was a deep impression that caused me to move forward, even when the perceived obstacles were in appearance. It was a perceived obstacle that prison would be, a barrier for me being able to, do the things that I've now not just done, but done well, and so that one person, of all the other people that I kept seeing on television from inside the prison, I kept, reading about in, different types of magazines and books that people were sending me from the outside, the free world is what we used to call it. I was able to get those materials and utilize those materials to give me hope and help me see opportunities and help me see my position, my place in the world. I don't have the global stage that she has, although I do have a global business and I do serve people in other parts of the world. I don't have her position, but I have that tenacity. I have all of those things that I was able to pick up, the resilience, those skills that, I was able to, gain from her, and being in her environment and going to her event, and, being able to, be a part of her online, teachings and trainings and coaching has helped me to have some of the tools that I now have to be able to help you. Okay. So, this is a real world success story for me. I was not in a position where I could allow anxiety to stop me. And there were times where I was fearful. Matter of fact, I have to tell this little story. I know we're almost at the top of the hour, but I've got to tell this one because I think this is really important. I remember the first time I had to take the bus. Now, I had taken the bus before, when I was younger. And so being on a bus didn't scare me. I mean, I could get on the bus, on the train. Sometimes I would travel when I was, in my business way before, having my prison experience. And I would go to different states. I've gone to other countries and ride their rail system, So I'm not afraid of public transportation. I, ascribe to public transportation. A lot of times when I travel, I don't even rent a car. I just get off the plane, get on the train, and go for it because I have that kind of, acumen for certain things, although I do get a little turned around and I have to depend on my husband, because he's human GPS. And so, sometimes I'll depend on him for things, but I can tell you that, with regards to, some of the things that I experienced, there were times where I was, really mortified about being in situations that I didn't know a whole lot about. And I had to get on the bus to go to a doctor's appointment, and I got on the wrong bus. And then I got on the wrong bus, not because of the fact that I didn't have, the right information, because I had the right information, but they changed the bus route. And so, I had no way of knowing that because I didn't have a smartphone or anything like that. I was operating off of paper, schedules, and they hadn't published the new schedules and put them in the right places just yet. And the route changed. I got on the bus that I was supposed to be getting on, and it took me to a totally different part of town. And I was like, oh boy. So I was not only late for my doctor's appointment, but on top of that, I was just in total disarray because I couldn't figure out how to get from where I was to where I needed to go. And everybody that I was calling that could possibly help me, nobody was answering the phone. My husband wasn't answering the phone. And so I was just like standing in the middle of Fort Worth, Texas, crying my eyes out because I was lost. And so, I was fearful, and I was totally impacted by the fact that, I couldn't have a car right then. And, not because I couldn't afford it, but it wasn't allowed. And I was like, oh, this is horrible. And I couldn't have somebody take me right then because I hadn't gotten enough points in the system to be riding in the car with someone else. And it was just so many things that had me, feeling that way, angry with myself, angry with, I wasn't angry with God, but I was just angered by the situation. How could something like this happen? And oh my God, am I going to be late getting back? Is it going to be something that gets sent back to the prison because of the fact that I was late? It was just lots of stuff going on at the moment, and because I didn't, I didn't see myself getting to the doctor in time enough to get the paperwork to show that I had been to the doctor. Oh, it was just all kinds of stuff. And I tell you that in that moment, I had to center myself to understand what was going on. I had to reframe the whole experience, okay, to get the ability to breathe deeply enough to get the oxygen going and all the stuff to get that anxiety level brought right back down to a manageable level. And it was some stuff that had to happen in about 5 or 10 minutes so that I could do what I needed to do. And of course, people started calling me back shortly to, because I had called and left messages, and then we got me on the right bus and I got to where I was going. I didn't miss my appointment, even though I was late. I made it back to the halfway house on time. And all of it worked out. And it was a tremendous teaching, for me. A character building moment for sure. And so I want to tell you that we, have these experiences, and I had to share that because I want you to know that real people have real experiences, and these real world success stories help us to know what we can do. Steve Jobs is another one. He was fired from the company that he led, okay, and then, of course, rehired, and he revolutionized multiple industries, not just that company, but multiple industries after that. What if he had decided, okay, this is too much and I can't move forward? What if that had been his decision? Well, it wasn't. And because of that, we now have a lot of different products. And I'm an Apple enthusiast. I'm talking to you right now, from a computer that is an Apple computer. I use an iPhone. I use iPads. I gift iPads and phones and computers to people. We've sent, devices to people so that they can complete their education and, so that they can run their companies. These have been things that our company has gifted to business owners. And so I am telling you that some of those things wouldn't even be possible because some of those devices wouldn't exist if Steve Jobs had not come back to Apple. Something to think about. And then Malala Yousafzai, I hope I said her name properly. She faced assassination, okay, an attempt on her life in 2012 before becoming the youngest ever Nobel Peace Prize laureate for her courageous advocacy for girls' education in her country. What if she had quit? It would have robbed her of the opportunity of being an icon for so many other young ladies who now know what's possible. So we've got to be thinking about these things when we are seeing ourselves as being afraid. When you take the step to do it anyway and to walk through the process, even if it doesn't turn out the way you expected, you now have new knowledge, and you are now a model for someone else coming behind you who may be experiencing the same, if not worse, okay, level of challenge that you're experiencing in doing what you do. Well, this has been Dr. Patience Jackson Rose, and I know this has been a very different kind of set that we did today, but I want to tell you that it is our experience that when we offer these types of trainings, it helps people to make the decision to move forward, even though obstacles appear. I want to invite you back, to our next session, because we're going to be talking about technology, but you also can go to our YouTube channel and look for Co-working Live with Red Worldwide so that you can get get access to all of our content. We have over 70 videos right now in co-working that you can go and learn how to do business better. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.